I am Chris, 54 years old, and today my only daughter Emily gets married. The morning sun cuts a sharp line across the empty hotel room, catching dust motes dancing over the suitcase I never fully unpacked. In my hand, 3x5 index cards bear the ghost of my handwriting, words practiced in the rearview mirror, in the shower, over countless cups of coffee. They feel flimsy now. For 28 years, my world has orbited hers. The memory is not a single picture, but a sensory flood, the sour, sweet smell of infant spit-up on my shoulder during late-night feedings, the jagged feel of her first lost tooth placed under my pillow, the sound of her laughter bubbling over during silly Saturday morning pancake battles. I was a blueprint drafter by trade, a man who believed in plans and load-bearing walls. Fatherhood was the greatest, most terrifying blueprint I ever followed, drawn without a manual revised daily. A chime from my phone fractures the quiet. A text from Emily. "Dad, don't forget the envelope today. Really looking forward to your speech." My fingers go to the inside pocket of the suit jacket, hanging in the closet. The envelope is there, thick, substantial, its corners sharp. A cold kernel of disquiet, one I've been swallowing for months, settles deeper. Things have been polite, but distant conversations orbiting logistics venues, menus, guest lists, never touching down on anything real. I told myself it was the chaos of wedding planning. Outside the window in the hotel courtyard, I see her. Her bridal robe is white against the green hedges. She is talking with David, my former business partner, from a venture 2 decades ago that fizzled out. He is all sharp angles and confident gestures, a man who trades in futures. He says something and she throws her head back in a laugh I haven't heard directed at me in years. She touches his arm, a casual, familiar gesture. I turn from the window. The speech cards bend in my grip. To all the parents out there who have ever looked in the mirror and wondered if their best was secretly a failure, if the love they poured out was measured in a different invisible unit. I see you. Tell me where you're watching from today. And if you know the weight of an unspoken hope, hit subscribe. This journey into the heart of a family silence is just beginning. The ceremony is a watercolor of soft light and murmured vows. She is breathtaking. But as the reception unfolds in the grand ballroom of the Willow Manor, a creeping sense of dislocation sets in. I am a mannequin in my own life. The air is thick with the scent of calla lilies and roasted beef. I move through the crowd, a polite smile fixed on my face, searching for my daughter. When I find her, she is a radiant vortex of activity. "Dad, the flowers are perfect, right? Did you try the salmon?" Her eyes scan the room over my shoulder. "Your toast is after dinner. Okay, you have the envelope." Before I can answer, she is swept away by a flock of her friends, their laughter like shattering glass. Across the sea of tables, her mother Jenna offers a tight, minimal smile from her seat beside her new husband. Our divorce was a slow leak, not an explosion, and we have settled into a distant civility for Emily's sake. And then there is David. He is not just a guest. He is a conductor. I watch him guide the photographer toward important guests, whisper something to the band leader, his hand resting on the small of Emily's back as he steers her toward a group of suited men. He belongs here in a way I suddenly painfully do not. The family photo session becomes a quiet theater of my erasure. "Parents of the bride," the photographer calls. I step forward, my heart a dull drum. From my other side, David also steps forward seamlessly. There is a horrible suspended second. Emily's brilliant smile flickers. Her eyes dart from him to me. "Chris, she says, her voice bright but strained. "Why don't you go stand by Mom for this one? The name is a deliberate erasure, not Dad." Chris. It lands like a physical blow to the sternum. I stand beside Jenna, her perfume an alien smell as the flash captures our fractured tableau. Later, I retreat to the sanctuary of the bar, where my oldest friend, Robert, finds me. "You're reading ghosts into the walls, Chris," he murmurs, ordering a scotch. "She's a bride. She's overwhelmed. This day is a tornado." I nod, clutching my ginger ale, the envelope in my pocket a leaden weight. I am a relic here, a monument to a version of fatherhood that has been gently conclusively declared obsolete. Dessert plates are cleared, leaving behind smears of chocolate and crumbs. The band shifts to a gentle, expectational melody. The master of ceremonies, a man with a voice like polished oak, takes the stage. "And now," he announces, beaming a timeless tradition, "the father of the bride will share his wisdom and his love." A spotlight seems to pin me in my chair. This is the moment. I stand my joints protesting and fumble with my note cards. I take one step, toward the podium at the center of the dais, then movement to my left. Emily rises a vision in silk and tulle and gently takes the microphone from the MC's hand. "If you'll indulge me," she says, her voice crystalline in the speakers, "I'd like to say a few words first." She turns to the room, and her face transforms into a mask of poignant vulnerability. She speaks of gratitude of love for her husband, Michael. Then her tone deepens, turns confessional. "My journey to this day," she says, pausing for effect, "wasn't always straight. There were crossroads where I felt unguided. I longed for a father who wasn't just a protector, but a pioneer. Someone who didn't just offer a safe harbor, but a map to new worlds." The room is utterly still. My breath feels trapped in my lungs. I wished in my quiet moments for a different kind of father. One who spoke the language of ambition, who saw my dreams not as childish fantasies, but as blueprints. She looks down, a single perfect tear tracing her cheek. Then she lifts her gaze, shining directly at David's table. And life, in its strange generosity, sent me a second father. A soft collective sigh ripples through the crowd. David nods modestly. "David, you saw the entrepreneur in me when I only saw a girl with a sketchpad. You taught me to leverage my assets to think in terms of equity and growth. You filled a mentorship void I was too proud to ever admit existed. You are the father of my professional dreams." The applause erupts, warm understanding, a tidal wave of approval for her raw honesty. I am a statue beside my chair. The words on my cards blur into meaningless scratches. I watch my daughter, my Emily, walk to David's table and embrace him. The embrace is long, heartfelt. The room cheers. In that sound, something final breaks inside me. Not a crack, but a complete structural failure. The love in that room is real. It is just not for me. The applause washes around me as if I am a stone in a river. I look down at my speech. I see the words "first steps" and "training wheels." I place the cards neatly on the stark white tablecloth. I reach into my jacket, my movements slow and deliberate. I pull out the heavy cream-colored envelope. I lay it on top of the note cards, a silent replacement. Then I turn. I walk past tables of clapping, teary-eyed guests. I push through the heavy ballroom doors. The noise vanishes, replaced by the hollow echo of my own footsteps on marble. I walk out of the hotel into the vast, indifferent night, leaving the husk of my old life behind. I drove without seeing. The manicured suburbs gave way to sprawling exurbs, then to the dark ribs of farmland. I exited on a whim, following a sign for a town I'd never heard of. The bar was called the High Point, though it sat in a valley of despair. Inside it was all neon beer signs and the acrid scent of stale popcorn. I took a stool at the end, ordered bourbon, and waited for the numbness. It didn't come. Instead, the dam broke. The speech wasn't an isolated incident. It was the final public chapter of a story I'd refused to read. The clues assembled themselves with merciless clarity. Her abrupt cancellation of our monthly breakfast for dinner tradition, always with a flimsy work excuse. The way she'd begun to paraphrase David's opinions on my career. David says vertical integration is the only model with longevity. Dad, isn't your firm kind of niche? Her specific repeated instructions about the wedding gift. Just a check in an envelope is fine, Dad. Really. No one needs things anymore. It's about contributing to our future. She didn't want a gift. She wanted a capital injection, a severance payment for the father of the past to fund the father of the future. My phone vibrated on the bar, lighting up with Robert's name. I ignored it. It buzzed again, persistent. I answered. Chris, for God's sake, you need to come back. Now. Robert's voice was a hissed whisper frayed with panic. You're making a scene. The scene was made without me, Robert. I said, my voice eerily calm. I just exited stage left. I hung up. The bourbon tasted like ash. The truth was a cold, hard mass in my gut. Every sacrifice, every quiet no I'd said to my own life played on a loop. Passing on the cross-country promotion because it was her junior year. Skipping my friend's fishing trip to be the chaperone for her disastrous middle school dance. The decade of weekends spent not on a golf course, but in hardware stores and on my knees, fixing up the old house so she'd have a nice place to bring her friends. I had built my entire identity on the foundation of being her dad, and she had just declared that foundation condemned. I didn't go back to the hotel. I found a motel that rented by the week. The room smelled of industrial cleaner and defeat. I sat in a hard chair by the window watching the red glow of a vacancy sign pulse against the wall. I didn't cry. I just sat in the hollowed-out silence of a man who has learned too late that the masterpiece he spent his life building was admired by no one but himself. Dawn in the motel room was a grey, grainy affair. My phone, face down on the cheap nightstand, was a silent disk of intermittent light, a frantic lighthouse signaling a shore I had abandoned. I finally picked it up. The string of messages from Emily was a forensic map of a collapsing reality. 10:52 p.m. Dad, this isn't funny. Where are you? You're humiliating me. 1:22 a.m. Everyone is asking questions. Michael is worried. Please call me. 2:58 a.m. Dad, I'm scared. Just tell me you're safe. 3:34 a.m. I opened the envelope. The last message hung in the digital air, a period on the sentence of the previous night. I knew what she found. It wasn't currency. It was an archaeological dig of my fatherhood layer, by painful layer. I had assembled it in a fit of sentimental desperation, thinking I was giving her the keys to my heart. Now it felt like I had submitted evidence in my own trial. The first item, a photocopy of the original mortgage deed for our house. My handwriting in the margin from the day we signed, 30-year anchor. Anchor for her. Smile at the notary. Don't let her see you sweat. The second a faded invoice from St. Mary's Hospital for an emergency appendectomy when she was 14. The highlighted line item, anesthesiology not covered by insurance, $1,250. Paperclipped to it was a carbon copy of a cashier's check for the same amount made out to the hospital, dated the next day. The memo line, for Emily. The third a printed email chain. The initial message from a renowned engineering firm in Dubai, offering a 2-year tax-free contract that would have set me for life. My reply, 3 lines. Thank you for this extraordinary offer. The timing is impossible due to family commitments. I must decline. The fourth, not a document, but a photograph of a drawing. Her 3rd-grade art project, a lumpy clay ashtray. I didn't smoke, glazed a violent orange. In the photo, I had placed it next to my favorite coffee mug on my office desk. On the back of the photo, I'd written, "The ugliest, most precious paperweight in the world. She made it for me." The 5th and final sheet. A plain piece of paper with my own block letters. Emily, this envelope doesn't hold money. It holds the cost of every choice. The road not taken always led to you. Be magnificent. All my love, Dad. I had thought I was gifting her a legacy. In the cold motel light, I saw it for what it was, a meticulously itemized invoice for a love she had taken for granted. A violent, sustained pounding shook the flimsy motel room door. "Chris, open this damn door. I can hear you breathing." It was Robert. I considered staying silent, becoming a ghost. The pounding turned to kicking. With a sigh that came from my bones, I turned the lock. He burst in his tuxedo shirt, untucked tie, missing face flushed. "What in the absolute hell were you thinking?" he roared, then stopped dead, taking in my posture. The empty room, the desolation that must have been plain on my face. His anger evaporated, replaced by a profound weariness. "You have to call her," he said, his voice dropping. "You have to." He told me what happened. The awkward, buzzing silence that descended after my exit. How Emily, flushed with a mixture of anger and confusion, had finally noticed the envelope on the table. How she'd picked it up with a dismissive sigh, expecting a check, and ripped the seal. How her expression changed from irritation to confusion as she pulled out the mortgage paper. How she sat down slowly, as if her legs had given out, and spread the contents before her like a tarot reading. How the room fell into a deeper, more bewildered silence as she read, her face draining of color. How she traced a finger over the hospital invoice, over the email printout. How when she turned over the photo of the clay ashtray, a sound escaped her, a choked, guttural sob that silenced the remaining chatter. "She didn't just cry," Robert whispered. "She unraveled, right there in front of everyone. She kept saying, 'I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know,' into her hands. David went to her, tried to touch her arm, and she recoiled like he was made of fire. She grabbed the papers, gathered her skirt, and ran from the room. The party. It was over. The band kept playing for a few minutes, then stopped. People just started leaving. He pushed my phone into my hand. "Call your daughter." My thumb found her name in the recent calls list. She answered before the first ring finished. "Dad." Her voice was shredded raw, a whisper scraped over gravel. "Emily, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. Any of it." The words were wet, gasping. She tried to explain through the tears. The pressure of her startup world where worth was quantified in valuations and board approvals. How David's glamorous success by association lifestyle felt like a shortcut to being taken seriously. The toast was meant to be a strategic alignment, a public merger of her personal and professional brands. She never intended it as an annihilation. "You never told me about Dubai," she wept. "You never said no to a promotion for me." I felt a profound exhaustion. Love isn't a list of declined invitations, Emily. It's the fabric they're declined on. You don't announce the threads, you just wear the cloth. There was a long silence, filled with her uneven breaths. "Can you come home?" she asked, the phrase sounding like a plea from a much younger girl. "Not yet," I said, and the words, while painful, felt true. "I'm right here. But I need to remember who here is, and you. You need to sit with what you know now." I let Robert drive me home. The house I had poured myself into felt like a museum dedicated to a closed exhibit. But the quiet was mine, and for the first time in decades that had to be enough. The following weeks were a study in slow motion. I returned to my drafting table at work, losing myself in the clean, logical lines of architectural plans. The physicality of my weekend routine changed. I began running not for health, but for the sheer mindless punishment of it, the burn in my lungs, a welcome replacement for the ache in my chest. I started a journal, not a diary of events, but a ledger of feelings, sprawling, messy, uncensored pages where I confronted the ghost of the father I thought I was supposed to be. I had conflated my entire identity with being her anchor, and when the ship sailed for a different port, I was left buried in the silt, useless. Meanwhile, Emily did not crowd me. Her communications were sparse, thoughtful. A text with a scanned image of a birthday card she made me when she was 7, covered in glitter and misspelled words. A voicemail of her humming a song I used to sing to her at bedtime, sent with no context. A delivery of a sapling for the backyard. A willow tree, she said in the note, because they bend, but their roots hold fast. We began to talk on the phone. Short, fragile conversations that started with the weather and sometimes tentatively brushed against the edges of the chasm between us. The performative joy was gone. We were two survivors, taking stock after a storm. Robert informed me that Emily had formally severed all financial and advisory ties with David. She had refinanced her startup debt through a conventional small business administration loan at a higher interest rate. She said she needed to understand the real cost of things. Robert told me a note of reluctant respect in his voice. She said she wanted to learn from someone who built things to last, not just to flip. Then one crisp autumn evening, an invitation arrived, not in the mail, but in person. I answered the doorbell to find Michael standing there, holding a baking dish covered in foil. "Emily made a chicken pot pie," he said, smiling awkwardly. "She thought you might like some. And we'd love it if you felt like joining us for dinner this weekend. No fanfare, just pie." I went. Their home was warm, lived-in books, spilling from shelves, a quilt thrown over the sofa. Over dinner, Michael spoke without pretense. "Emily showed me the things from the envelope, Chris," he said, his eyes earnest. "The hospital bill, the email. I just wanted to say, as a man hoping to be a father someday, that's the most powerful thing I've ever seen. It's the definition of something." He wasn't trying to fix it. He was simply bearing witness. And in that simple act of recognition from this good man who loved my daughter, a lock inside me, long rusted shut, began to turn. It is a bright, cold Saturday morning, the kind that sharpens the edges of the world. I am in my workshop, the space filled with the comforting scents of sawdust and linseed oil. I am restoring an antique rocking chair, a slow, meticulous process of stripping away old varnish to reveal the original grain beneath. The work is therapeutic in its demand for patience. The memory of the wedding no longer feels like an open wound. It is a scar now, a tough, familiar ridge I can trace without flinching. What grew in its place is a quieter, sturdier connection. My relationship with Emily is no longer a given. It is a daily choice. We have established a new rhythm, bi-weekly dinners, where we talk about current projects. Her business struggles my plans to finally build that garden shed. Sometimes, silence sits comfortably between us. She is in the thick of running her company, now facing supply chain issues, and hiring woes that no glamorous mentor can wave away. And sometimes, late at night, my phone will light up with a text. "Dad, the numbers aren't making sense. Can I come by tomorrow and whiteboard this with you?" She doesn't ask because I'm a Silicon Valley guru. She asks because I am a man who understands fundamentals, stability, and the virtue of a plan well executed. I have learned that the value of a love is not determined by the volume of its celebration, but by the depth of its roots. My fatherhood was never in the dazzling spotlight. It was in the wiring behind the walls, the foundation below the floorboards, unseen essential holding everything up. She sees that now, not as a burden she carries, but as the solid ground she stands upon. So I leave you with this. When was the last time you felt your own worth was invisible? Your quiet contributions like soundless shouts in an empty room. How did you find your way back to being seen, even if just by yourself? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be the anchor someone else needs. If this tale of a love that spoke through silence instead of speeches meant something to you, please give this video a like. It tells the algorithm that these quiet conversations matter. And if you want to walk alongside me as we explore more stories of rebuilding, of finding strength in the unspoken chapters of our lives, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Share this with someone who might need a reminder that their legacy is often written in the sacrifices no one applauds. Thank you for your time, for your ears, for your own stories. Go gently. Build something that lasts.